The insult that Donald Trump directed at Barack Obama did not come as a complete surprise to those who have followed the former president's combative style, but the way it unfolded carried an intensity that immediately gripped public attention. Trump has long been known for his blunt remarks, fiery rhetoric, and willingness to take aim at anyone he views as a political opponent or ideological adversary. In this instance, his insult was not a casual jab but a calculated strike, designed to provoke, dominate the conversation, and create headlines that would echo across television, radio, and social media platforms. When Trump speaks, he does so with the awareness that every word is magnified in the modern media environment, and his insult toward Obama was crafted in a way that ensured it could not be ignored. What made the insult particularly impactful was not only who it targeted but how it was delivered. Barack Obama, a figure who has consistently commanded respect on the global stage, has often handled criticism with composure and a measured tone. For Trump to openly insult him, especially in such a public and aggressive manner, instantly raised the stakes of the encounter. Audiences were not just listening to another political disagreement, they were witnessing a clash of personalities, leadership styles, and worldviews. Trump's insult had the power to resonate with his supporters who thrive on his confrontational energy while simultaneously outraging those who admire Obama and see him as a symbol of dignity and intelligence in politics. This dual effect is something Trump has mastered, knowing that his words will both mobilize his base and inflame his critics, keeping him at the center of attention no matter the reaction. The tone of the insult was sharp, dismissive, and intended to undermine Obama's credibility. Trump thrives on branding his opponents in ways that stick with audiences, often reducing complex legacies or achievements into simple, biting remarks that can easily be repeated and shared. With Obama, the insult carried an extra layer of tension because of the history between the two men. Trump was one of the loudest voices in the birther movement, questioning Obama's legitimacy as president by falsely suggesting he was not born in the United States. That campaign of insults and innuendos played a central role in Trump building his political identity and appealing to certain segments of the electorate. By insulting Obama again in this moment, Trump was not just speaking in the present, he was reviving an old rivalry that has defined a large part of his political journey. The immediate aftermath of the insult was an explosion of commentary. Journalists dissected the words, analysts speculated on the motives, and supporters on both sides flooded social media with their takes. Within minutes, hashtags related to the insult were trending, clips of Trump's delivery were being replayed, and Obama's camp was pressured to respond. The S. makes his insults both powerful and dangerous, because they stick in the minds of listeners and frame the way people view his targets. With Obama, the insult likely drew upon themes Trump has used before, questions of competence, legitimacy, or loyalty, because those lines of attack resonate with his supporters and fit into the broader narrative he has built about his enemies. The power of such insults is that they do not exist in isolation. They echo past grievances and tie into ongoing political battles that keep the controversy alive. For the American public, hearing Trump insult Obama in such a brazen way also represented a broader moment of cultural division. Supporters of Trump viewed the insult as another example of their leader speaking uncomfortable truths and refusing to bow to political correctness. For them, it was a moment of strength, defiance, and authenticity. For critics, however, the insult was an unacceptable display of disrespect toward a former president, a man who has retained high approval ratings and a lasting influence on the Democratic Party. The divide in reactions underscored the polarization of the country, where even a single sentence can deepen the gulf between opposing sides. In many ways, the insult was less about Trump versus Obama and more about the larger battle between two visions of America. The context in which the insult was delivered also heightened its significance. Trump was not speaking in a vacuum. He was aware that his remarks would reverberate across a political landscape already saturated with tension, division, and mistrust. By directing his words at Obama, he chose a target that embodies much of what Trump opposes and much of what his opponents admire. This ensured that the insult would not fade into obscurity but would instead become part of a broader narrative about conflict, resistance, and the ongoing rivalry between two political titans. The spectacle of the insult, combined with the anticipation of Obama's response, created a moment of drama that extended beyond politics into the realm of cultural memory, cementing it as a confrontation that would be analyzed, debated, and remembered long after the words were first spoken. Barack Obama's response to Donald Trump's insult was not only swift but also remarkably calculated, demonstrating the careful balance of timing, strategy, and symbolism that has long defined his approach to conflict. Within seconds of Trump's dismissive words, Obama shifted the narrative in a way that no one could have anticipated. Rather than replying with a verbal counterattack or attempting to match Trump's fiery rhetoric, he chose a path that stunned both supporters and critics alike: a $100 million lawsuit. This move was not simply a matter of defending his personal dignity, it was a deliberate decision to show strength through legal means, reminding everyone that the battleground of politics extends far beyond speeches and insults. By opting for such a bold and dramatic response, Obama sent a clear message that he would not allow himself to be defined by Trump's narrative, nor would he let an insult go unanswered without consequences. The speed of the response added an extra layer of shock. In politics, words are often volleyed back and forth through statements, interviews, or social media posts, but lawsuits typically require careful preparation, extensive consultation, and time. For Obama to react with such immediacy suggested that this was not merely spontaneous but a premeditated strategy. The $100 million figure itself carried symbolic weight. It was not a random amount but one chosen to capture attention and underscore the seriousness of the matter. A smaller lawsuit might have been dismissed as symbolic or insignificant, but by attaching such a massive financial penalty, Obama transformed the insult into a potentially ruinous liability for Trump. The sheer size of the lawsuit made headlines on its own, ensuring that the story would dominate media cycles and overshadow the original insult. In doing so, Obama elevated the confrontation from a war of words to a high-stakes legal drama that drew in commentators, legal experts, and political observers alike. The magnitude of the lawsuit served as both a deterrent and a statement of confidence in his own position, signaling that this was not about personal offense alone but about drawing a line against reckless attacks. Strategically, Obama's choice of legal action also played into his long-cultivated image as someone who believes in institutions, rules, and the power of due process. Where Trump thrives on chaos, unpredictability, and breaking norms, Obama has consistently presented himself as a defender of order and democratic traditions. By answering an insult with a lawsuit, Obama reinforced his brand as a leader who respects the law and uses it as his weapon of choice. This contrast highlighted the deeper philosophical differences between the two men. Trump relies on rhetoric to dominate, while Obama relies on systems of accountability to assert his authority. For many Americans, this difference in styles was not just about personal rivalry but about competing visions for how leaders should wield power in a democracy. The response also had a psychological impact on Trump himself. Known for his confidence and ability to bulldoze through scandals with sheer force of personality, Trump rarely encounters opposition that matches his aggression in such a tangible way. A lawsuit, particularly one demanding such a staggering sum, presented him with a challenge that could not be dismissed through bravado alone. It forced him into the realm of legal defense, where rules and evidence matter more than volume and sound bites. This shift placed him in an uncomfortable position, where he could no longer simply control the narrative by repeating insults or dominating airtime. Instead, he faced the possibility of being held financially accountable for his words, a prospect that undermined his usual sense of invulnerability. For the public, Obama's lawsuit became a defining moment of resistance. Many of his supporters saw it as a long overdue stand against Trump's tactics of personal attack and public humiliation. To them, Obama's response was not just about protecting his own reputation but about defending the dignity of public service and the office he once held. By firing back with legal force, Obama gave voice to those who had grown weary of Trump's unfiltered insults and wished for someone to hold him accountable in a concrete way. The lawsuit was celebrated as an act of courage, a refusal to be bullied, and a demonstration that even the sharpest words can have consequences when directed at someone unwilling to be demeaned. Media coverage of the response further amplified its impact. Headlines blared with the staggering lawsuit figure, talk shows dissected the implications, and pundits speculated about the possible outcomes. In the court of public opinion, Obama's response overshadowed Trump's insult almost immediately, drawing attention away from the substance of what Trump had said and refocusing it on the legal battle that was now unfolding. This shift in focus was a tactical victory for Obama, as it ensured that the story most people remembered was not the insult itself but the powerful response that followed. The lawsuit effectively reframed the narrative, positioning Obama not as a target of ridicule but as a fighter willing to use every tool at his disposal to push back. The swiftness and boldness of the lawsuit also served as a warning to others in the political arena. Obama's response demonstrated that there are limits to the kind of discourse leaders can engage in without facing serious repercussions. It reminded everyone that while political speech is protected, defamation and reckless accusations can cross into dangerous territory. This precedent-setting move had ripple effects beyond the personal feud between Trump and Obama, raising questions about how far political leaders should go when attacking their opponents and whether new standards of accountability were emerging. By making the lawsuit such a central part of his response, Obama signaled that the rules of engagement were changing, and that insults at the highest levels of politics could carry life-altering consequences. Ultimately, the brilliance of Obama's response lay not just in the act itself but in the way it altered the balance of power between him and Trump. Where Trump sought to diminish him with words, Obama elevated himself with action. Where Trump attempted to provoke, Obama answered with precision and force. The lawsuit was more than a legal maneuver, it was a symbolic act of defiance that spoke to larger themes of respect, responsibility, and resilience in the face of attack. By choosing to respond in this way, Obama not only defended himself but also redefined the nature of political conflict, proving that insults can be met with something far more powerful than words. The clash between Donald Trump and Barack Obama, ignited by an insult and answered with a staggering $100 million lawsuit, revealed more than just a personal feud between two powerful figures. It exposed the deeper realities of modern American politics, where reputation, power, and the ability to control the narrative are as valuable as policy and governance. This was not simply about one man hurling an insult and another responding with legal force, it was about how leaders shape their legacies in an environment dominated by spectacle, polarization, and the unrelenting pressure of media coverage. The significance of this confrontation lies in what it tells us about the current state of political discourse, the stakes involved when public figures challenge each other, and the way such moments influence public perception for years to come. At its core, the insult and the lawsuit highlighted the importance of reputation as a form of political capital. For Trump, attacking Obama has long been a strategy to energize his supporters, who view him as someone willing to challenge established figures and question their authority. His words were not aimed solely at Obama but at the larger audience who interprets these verbal attacks as proof of his fearlessness and authenticity. On the other hand, Obama's lawsuit was an assertion of his own reputation, showing that he would not allow his name and legacy to be diminished without consequence. Both men understood that their reputations are not static, they are constantly being shaped by moments of confrontation, and every insult or response has the potential to alter how history remembers them. In this sense, their clash was as much about safeguarding their legacies as it was about winning the immediate battle. Power also played a central role in this confrontation. Trump's insult represented the raw, aggressive use of rhetorical power, designed to dominate the conversation and establish control over the narrative. It was an attempt to show that even a former president could be reduced to the target of a cutting remark. Obama's counter, however, revealed another kind of power, the ability to use institutions, in this case the legal system, to fight back. This juxtaposition of rhetorical power versus institutional power underscored the very difference. The clash also served as a mirror for the nation's political divisions. For Trump's supporters, the insult was seen as another example of his refusal to bow to political elites, a reaffirmation of his role as an outsider challenging the establishment. They applauded his directness, interpreting it as a sign of strength and independence. For Obama's supporters, the lawsuit was celebrated as a long-awaited demonstration that Trump's words could no longer go unchecked, that someone of stature was willing to hold him accountable. The polarized reactions reinforced the idea that America's political culture is less about shared values and more about loyalty to competing camps. Each side interpreted the confrontation through its own lens, with little room for common ground, further deepening the sense that every political event is a battle in a larger cultural war. Media coverage amplified these divides by framing the confrontation as a dramatic showdown. Television anchors, columnists, and commentators described the moment in terms of conflict and spectacle, emphasizing the personal animosity between the two men while often overlooking the larger implications for democracy and governance. The lawsuit became fodder for endless debates about free speech, defamation, and the boundaries of political rhetoric. Meanwhile, the insult continued to circulate online, often stripped of context, serving as a rallying cry for those who thrive on political outrage. This cycle of coverage illustrates how modern media thrives on conflict, rewarding dramatic exchanges with endless airtime while often neglecting more substantive discussions. The Trump-Obama clash was a perfect storm of insult, retaliation, and spectacle that guaranteed maximum attention. Beyond the immediate reactions, the confrontation raised important questions about accountability in politics. Trump's style of communication has often pushed the boundaries of what is acceptable, blurring the line between personal attacks and legitimate criticism. Obama's lawsuit was an attempt to draw a boundary, to assert that even in politics there are limits to what can be said without consequence. This set a precedent that words, especially when uttered by powerful figures, carry weight and can have real-world repercussions. Whether the lawsuit ultimately succeeded or not, its very existence marked a turning point in how political figures might choose to respond to verbal attacks in the future. It demonstrated that the old rules of ignoring insults or responding with more words are no longer the only options available. The broader impact of this clash also extended to the way the public views leadership itself. For some, Trump's willingness to insult a former president reflects strength, a refusal to play by conventional rules, and an authenticity that resonates with those tired of polished, scripted politicians. For others, it represents a degradation of the dignity expected from national leaders, a sign of hope. Another key element of the clash was its impact on the legacies of both men. For Trump, the insult continued his brand of being unfiltered and relentless, a disruptor who spares no one, not even former presidents. For Obama, the lawsuit became part of his legacy of defending principles, institutions, and personal dignity in the face of attack. Historians will likely look back on this moment as more than a petty feud. It will be remembered as a symbolic confrontation between two different visions of America, embodied in the actions of two of its most influential leaders. The legacies of both Trump and Obama are already cemented in many ways, but moments like these add new chapters that shape how future generations will interpret their roles in history. The confrontation also revealed the evolving nature of political conflict in the digital era. In the past, such clashes might have unfolded slowly, through press conferences and newspaper columns. Today, they erupt instantly across social media, where seconds can determine who controls the narrative. Trump's insult was immediately shared, dissected, and amplified online, while Obama's lawsuit response was equally rapid and designed for maximum impact in the same space. The speed of these exchanges shows how modern politics operates at a pace that leaves little room for reflection, where immediate reactions often matter more than long-term strategies. This acceleration of conflict has profound implications for how politics is practiced, making it more about theater and less about deliberation. Ultimately, the clash between Trump and Obama revealed how deeply political battles are tied to issues of identity, legacy, and the struggle for dominance in a divided nation. The insult and the lawsuit were not isolated events but reflections of a larger struggle over what America represents and how its leaders should conduct themselves. The confrontation underscored the fact that in today's political environment, every word and every response carries immense weight, shaping not only the reputations of those involved but also the broader narrative of the country itself.